The smell hit before the front door even opened: cabbage, ammonia, and something worse. The potential buyers hesitated. One glance at the neighbors, big, tattooed guys revving their motorcycles, and they bolted. By the end of the day, the only people left standing were us. And the greedy landlords who'd tried to screw over a struggling family. They were about to lose everything they thought they'd gain. 15 years ago, my best friend Sarah and her husband Tom were living what you'd call the struggling dream. 5 kids. One rundown 4-bedroom house. And rent that cost them nearly everything they earned, $400 a week. The house was far from perfect. The kitchen looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the 80s, the drains stank like saw gas, and half the wallpaper was older than the kids themselves. But it was home. And it came with one beautiful blessing: the landlady, Mrs. Whitmore. Mrs. Whitmore was a sweet old lady, the kind who baked cookies for the kids and always asked about school. She was also loaded. Like, multi-property portfolio, old money rich. But despite that, she genuinely liked Sarah's family. She'd frozen their rent for 5 years, never raised it once, and promised that one day, when they had enough saved, she'd sell them the house at a fair price. Sarah and Tom believed her. Why wouldn't they? Mrs. Whitmore had done the same for other tenants. She was a woman of her word. So, for 5 long years, they scrimped and saved every spare cent. No vacations. No luxuries. Just hope and discipline. And finally, they did it. They had enough. Sarah called Mrs. Whitmore with tears in her eyes and said, "We're ready. We can finally buy the house." Mrs. Whitmore was overjoyed. They planned to meet that week. But 2 days later, Mrs. Whitmore passed away. Before anything was put in writing. At first, the family was devastated, not just because of the lost opportunity, but because they'd really loved her. Then the phone rang. It was her children. 4 of them, all extremely wealthy. The kind of people who inherit mansions and complain about the cost of wine. They told Sarah and Tom not to worry. "We'll honor our mother's word," they said. "Just wait until probate settles." So my friends waited, months of waiting, painting walls, stripping old wallpaper, dreaming of their forever home. Finally, probate was settled. The kids called back. "We're going ahead with the sale at the agreed price," they said. Sarah and Tom were ecstatic. They applied for the loan immediately. And that's when the banker frowned and said, "Wait, this price doesn't match what the owners listed." Turns out, those snakes had raised the asking price by $80,000. Without telling them. To make it worse, they'd already scheduled an open house for the following week. The property was going on the open market. 7 days. 7 days before the dream they'd spent 5 years building would be ripped away. I'll never forget the night Sarah called me. Her voice was breaking, half angry, half terrified. "We can't find anywhere else we can afford, not with 5 kids. Rents have doubled. We'll have to move hours away, just to get a 2-bedroom. I felt something burn inside me, not sadness. Rage? Because I knew the truth. Those 4 kids of Mrs. Whitmore didn't need the money. Each of them was already rich. They were squeezing a struggling family for less than 20 grand each, pure greed. And right then, I made up my mind. If they wanted to play dirty, we were going to play smarter. I started researching. Late nights scrolling through real estate blogs, reading agent advice columns, watching open house strategy videos. The goal? Make the property look undesirable, without making Sarah and Tom seem like bad tenants. We were going to kill the sale, from the inside out. We started with the space trick. We moved all the furniture in from the walls, made the rooms feel smaller, borrowed some bulky chairs, cluttered the corners, hung-up motorcycle memorabilia I borrowed from a friend. Instantly, the house looked cramped and chaotic. Next came the smell game. Sarah boiled a whole head of cabbage on the stove for hours. The smell was indescribable. Then we sprayed ammonia near the front and back doors, perfect for simulating the scent of neighborhood cats marking territory. To top it off, we cracked 24 rotten eggs and poured them down the drains. Within an hour, the whole house smelled like Satan's armpit. Across the road, the neighbor let us dump an old, moldy couch on their front lawn. Looked like the start of a hoarder's paradise. We called in every friend with a loud car or motorcycle. Do some laps, we said. Make the street look lively. By the time the open house rolled around, it looked like a demolition derby was in progress. And to seal the deal, our rugby club friends, huge, bearded guys with tattoos and leather jackets, set up a full-on barbecue on the front lawn next door. Free food, cheap beer, loud laughter. We told them to look as rough as possible. The idea wasn't to destroy the property, it was to create an atmosphere. The kind of place that made buyers second-guess every step they took. The day arrived. The first couple walked in. They lasted 30 seconds. One sniff and they were gone. Another family lingered for a minute, but as soon as a Harley revved out front and someone shouted, "Who wants another beer?" they fled. One woman didn't even get out of her car. She just sat there, watching the party across the street, shaking her head before driving away. Then came one brave man, mid-40s, business casual, probably thought he could handle it. He tried making small talk with one of our neighbors. The guy smiled and said, "Oh yeah, we do this every couple weeks. Sometimes we even have after parties." Then, casually, he added, "You'll get used to the smell. Tree roots always blocking those drains. Happens every few months." The buyer's face drained of color. He left without another word. At the end of the day, guess who was the only buyer left? Sarah and Tom. Their offer wasn't as high as the new asking price, but it was something. And in that moment, the greedy heirs had no choice but to take it. It was the only deal on the table. So they accepted. Sarah and Tom signed the papers and paid the deposit right there. And that's when karma showed up with a smirk. Because the next day, a brave buyer came back. He decided to make an offer after all. $30,000 higher. But it didn't matter. Thanks to strict anti-gazumping laws, once my friends had signed, the deal was locked. The heirs couldn't legally back out. The property was sold. To the very people they tried to screw over. And just like that, their greed cost them the extra money they thought they were entitled to. I wish I could have seen their faces when they found out. The phone calls, the outrage, four wealthy siblings realizing they'd been outsmarted by the very family they'd underestimated. That house, the one they thought was beneath them, became my friend's forever home. And to this day, every time I drive by and see the kids playing in the front yard, I can't help but smile. Because for once, greed didn't win. Sometimes, justice doesn't come from the courts. Sometimes, it comes from a boiling pot of cabbage, a few bad smells, and a neighborhood full of loyal friends. It's not about money. It's about principle. About standing up when someone tries to take what you've earned. If this story made you smile, then you know, karma always keeps the receipts.